Good afternoon. It's Alex again, coming to you from the law office of Alex Field. Uh, that's that's Raymond back there. He's putting a new wall in the office, so we have a little more privacy. But today, I just want to talk to you a little bit more about the DWI situation. Last video, we talked about whether to blow or not to blow. I hope that helped you. And if you have any questions about the video after the fact, just all you got to do is send me a message. I'll answer it for you. Today, I want to go into the second part of it, and that's what happens when you get stopped. Okay, so you're riding down the road, and a police officer gets behind you and pulls you over. Thinks you are driving while intoxicated. What do they do next? Well, first of all, you have to be very conscious of what you're doing. Okay. First of all, they're watching everything you do. When they ask for your license, they ask for your insurance. They're watching to make sure that you're not fumbling in your wallet, trying to find your license. Don't hand them a credit card. I've seen that before. They ask for your license and you hand them a credit card or some other card or your insurance, same thing. And that already shows that you can't follow instructions. You're having problems figuring out what he's asking, and that shows a loss of your mental faculties. And see, in Texas, DWI is the loss of the normal use of your physical or mental capacity. Okay, of course, driving and operating a motor vehicle, but the total thing is operating a motor vehicle when you have lost the normal use of your mental or physical faculties. So they can prove it either you can't follow instructions mentally, you're not doing what they ask you to do, or physically, obviously, slurring of speech, stumbling, whatever, that type of thing. So that's how they prove it. Like I said, we talked about blowing or not to blow last time, so I'm not going to even get into the .08 aspect, but you can watch the other video for that. But so you get stopped. So they're watching, right? You give them your license, you give them your insurance. Then you get out and they say, well, I want to do some tests. Okay, so there's a decision you got to make right there. Do I do the test? Do I not do the test? Okay, well, that is up to you. Okay, because if you don't do the test, then you're going to jail anyway. Okay, a lot of people will tell you, don't do the test because it's designed for you to fail. You're not going to pass it, so just go ahead and don't do anything, don't say anything, just get arrested. Maybe, I can understand that. But if you're not intoxicated, why go to jail for intoxication or DWI when you're not intoxicated? Why do that? So at that point, and like I said, this goes back to the other video, you've got to make a decision as to how much you've had to drink. Was it one beer where you're obviously not intoxicated, or was it 10? Okay, so if you had 10, obviously you don't want to give them any more ammunition than they have already by making having a bad field sobriety test. But if you only have one or two beers and you can pass it, then I would advise you to do that. Maybe that keeps you from going to jail that night. But if you can consciously think about making those two decisions, then you're probably not drunk. Okay, so anyway, what'll happen is they'll get you out and they'll say, well, the first test we're going to do, everybody knows this as the pen test, or their finger in front of your face. There's nothing you can do about this, okay? They're going to ask you to follow their pen or their finger with your eyes, and your eyes only, don't move your head. And what that shows in this test is called the HGN test, the horizontal gaze nystagmus test. And basically what it is, everyone has a natural nystagmus in their eyes, and that is the involuntary jerking of the eyeball, okay? But when you have alcohol or drugs in your system, the jerking of your eyeball becomes visible. Without alcohol, it's hard to see, but with it, it becomes visible, and that's how they can tell if you're intoxicated or not. So they'll tell you to follow the pen with your eyes and don't move your head. So as you're following it left and right, they're watching your eyeball to see how much it's jerking or bouncing up and down. And there's nothing you can do. You can't feel it happening. You can't control it. There's nothing you can do. So that gives them the first a baseline of what they think about your situation at the time, whether you're intoxicated or not. So also there's vertical nystagmus also. That's up and down. And that'll show them whether or not you have drugs in your system. So there's nothing you can do. You follow the pen, and they'll make their own determination. The next test is going to be what they call the heel to toe or walk and turn test. Okay? So what they're going to ask you, and what's important here is they're watching the mental faculties at first. They're going to ask you to do some things prior to taking the test. And if you can follow instructions, you'll do those. If you can't, then that probably means you might be a little impaired. So they're watching to see if you follow those instructions, as well as video and all this. So what they're going to say is put your right foot in front of your left, put your hands down by your side. After that, they're going to say take 9 heel-to-toe steps on an imaginary line. And once you've done 9, take a series of small steps to turn around and take 9 heel-to-toe steps back. So, like I said, they're watching to see if you stay in that resting position, that starting position, with your right foot in front of your left, heel-to-toe, with your arms down by your side. Most people, if they're intoxicated, they can't do this. They weave left and right, or they don't stand in position because they can't follow instructions. So, next thing, when you do the heel-to-toe part, taking the 9 steps, they're watching to see if you stay on that imaginary line and if you're actually touching heel-to-toe. Now, they're seeing if you're swaying, if you're keeping your balance, things of that nature. I know people tell you that this is an impossible test. I can't do this even if I wasn't intoxicated or whatever, but these tests are scientifically devised, and a normal person that doesn't have any injuries or anything can do these, okay? So you take the 9 heel-to-toe steps forward, small series of steps to turn around after the 9th step, and then come back 9 steps heel-to-toe. And like I said, they're watching to see if you do the correct number of steps, if you turn around correctly, if you know when to stop. All these things show the mental aspect of it. So that's what's going to happen. Secondly, now thirdly, they're going to ask you to do the one leg stand test. So they'll tell you to put your hands down by your side, pick any leg you want, and raise it about 6 inches off the ground, keeping your toe pointed forward, and count 1001, 1002, 1003, all the way up until they tell you to stop. Now, once again, they're asking us, they tell you these things to see if you can follow instructions. You know, if you're not intoxicated, you should be able to follow the instructions. So you'll pick either leg up, 6 inches off the ground with your toe pointed, and you'll count 1001, 1002, etc. until the officer says stop. Now, if you lose your balance, you'll say just continue. Put your leg back up and continue. So you'll do that, and it's approximately about 30 seconds is what they're looking at. Once again, follow the instructions. Secondly, they're looking to see if you lose your balance, if you keep your foot in the air 6 inches or so. If you're using your arms to balance, and things of that nature. So all this is on video, and they'll be able to show it later. A lot of times, you know, I'll have people come to me and say, I was not intoxicated. I passed the test. Well, it's on video, and sometimes we have a come to Jesus meeting and say, you're intoxicated. Let's make a deal. So anyway, those are the standard field sobriety tests. Okay, those are the 3 that they do every time, unless you have some type of injury where you say my back's hurt or my legs hurt or whatever, I can't do it. Then they'll go to some alternate tests such as the finger count or touch, you know, your finger to your nose, or say your alphabet from G to Z without stopping. But, you know, I know people say, well, they told me to do, you know, say my ABCs backwards or something. Well, they don't do that because, you know, you can't do that anyway. Okay, so they give you something easy to do that a normal person can do if they're not intoxicated. So that is basically what they do on the standard field sobriety test. And I'm telling you these things because, you know, if you're going to drink and drive, and a lot of people just have a glass of wine or beers or whatever and go home. But if you get stopped, you need to know what's coming, because you may not be intoxicated. But, you know, the average person, when they get stopped by an officer, they're nervous. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know if they're going to jail, you know, and all this stuff makes maybe your actions a little exaggerated, and it may seem like you're intoxicated. So if you know what's coming, maybe you can handle it a little better, because I'm not advocating drinking and driving. I'm just trying to tell you that if you find yourself in these situations and you're not intoxicated, then if you know what's coming, and practice a test. You know why the DPS troopers are so good at doing the heel to toe and the one leg stand test? Is because they do it all the time. You know, it's obvious. If you practice something, you're going to be better at it. So if you're watching TV and you don't have anything to do, you know, put your right foot in front of your left, take 9 heel to toe steps, small series of steps to turn around, and go 9 heel to toe steps back. Practice, okay? One leg stand. Pick any leg, pick it up 6 inches off the ground, count 1001, 1002 till about 30 seconds. And if you practice that a lot, you'll get good at it. So, you know, that's what the field sobriety tests are about. That's what they're looking for. And if you find yourself in those situations and you're able to make a conscious decision whether to take the test, then you're probably not intoxicated. And if you practice these tests, you're probably going to do okay, and maybe not go to jail that night. So anyway, I'm glad got a chance to share this with y'all. If you have any questions, just send me some messages and I will answer it as best as I can. Y'all have a good weekend, and go Cowboys.